what actually is the Shikibuton? What actually is the Japanese futon? Because you said it's a nice middle ground between right on the floor and these full, 1.5 foot high beds. Like, what actually is it? What's the thickness? What's the comfort level? Do you just lay this mat on the ground?
Yeah, so Shikibuton in Japan is just translated to mattress. So these are traditional mattresses that are found in Japan, but you also find different variations of these throughout the world. And they're usually made out of natural materials like organic cotton, wool. They're about 3 inches thick, which is pretty thin. And they are a futon, so they can be folded up. And the traditional way to do this, how they do it in Japan, is they lay these on tatami mats, which are these wheat-wrapped mats. They're pretty much like hardwood floors. You actually see them in dojos a lot of times. And in Japan, they have rooms, filled with these. And they'll sit on the floor. They'll drink tea on the floor. They'll stretch, and then they'll fold up their mattress when they wake up, put it in the closet, and then bring it back out. So it appeals to the minimalist crowd in that sense, but it is incredibly firm. Not to deter people from using this when I say this, but I've had people curious about my Japanese bed, and they'll lay on it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is like a prison bed." This is incredibly firm, and yet still not as firm as like laying directly on the ground. It's actually soft in some ways too, but it gives you the support that your back actually needs. If we compare this to polyurethane foam, which is what you find in beds most of the time. These beds, when you lay in them, most of the time you sink into them. And depending upon the firmness, you can find more firm polyurethane bones, but your back actually needs a firm surface to lay on. In nature, how we have existed, if you want to use the ancestral lens, we were not sleeping on things very soft for a majority of millennia. And it's only the case that every westernized bed has been made incredibly thick and incredibly soft from unnatural materials that we have these problems starting to rise, not only from the lack of density and the lack of material and good materials being used, but also from things like toxic chemical exposure. Because not only are a lot of chemicals used to create these synthetic beds, but also they're heavily sprayed with flame retardants. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but getting back to kind of the crux of it, which is that you need something firm. You need something thin. This is the best thing for you to sleep on, without a doubt. So even if you're going for, a firmer polyurethane foam mattress, you still are looking at the material. And unfortunately, polyurethane doesn't hold your body correctly. If you look at most of your body is kind of in your hips and your chest area or your lower back area. So when you lay in these beds, you sink in versus being aligned and straight.
Right.
So a lot of people actually have back issues. I actually, before switching to the Japanese futon, had some back issues that I thought was just related to sports and stuff like that I did. And it was until I switched my bed where I'm like, wow, I'm waking up feeling really good. Like my back is finally being in alignment and straight, and my posture issues started to go away, and it was interesting. So I'm pretty sold on the Japanese futon.